Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fan Interference with Wichita Wingnuts manager Pete Rose Jr. Fan Interference is a weekly program where you, the fans, can ask the Wichita manager questions about the Wingnuts, baseball or sports in general, or just seek Pete's wisdom about life events that are going on out there. In this week's episode, Pete provides some team updates to us. He shares with us his excitement about the United States winning the World Baseball Classic. And Pete tells us what he has planned for Josh this season. So let's get right to Fan Interference. Well, let's welcome back manager Pete Rose Jr. Pete, do you have any team updates you'd like to provide to us?
We signed TJ Middlestat back, who's, it's tough for me to talk about him because he just does everything right, and he's, it really scratches my head. It makes me scratch my head to wonder why he's not on a big league roster somewhere or in big league camp somewhere. But, he was definitely our MVP last year. I think he gets, kind of looped into being a super utility guy when he's basically an everyday guy. But what an asset to have as a manager of a baseball team, to have TJ on your team. And, I'm super excited he's back. I'm super disappointed that he's not in spring training with a team. But he's one of the better ball players, if not the best, that I've ever managed and ever been around, just because he uses his brain well, he plays well, he runs, he can hit for power, you can put him anywhere. And then you talk about a clubhouse guy that kind of exceeds all the stuff I just talked about. So we're really happy to have TJ back, and just excited to let him go out and do what he does and kind of lead us on the field, and we all fallen behind him. So really excited to have him back, and who wouldn't be excied to have him back?
You talk about the fact that people kind of lump him as a utility guy. One of the things I find interesting about him is that, a utility guy is usually a guy like, let's say, who can play short really well and then can work out second and third. Well, he can play like 5 positions exceptionally well.
Robert, he can play. I'll take it a step further. He could play 7 positions, and he could play them every day, and you would think that that's a position he's played all his life. I mean, he played some first last year. I remember Leo got kicked out in Laredo. He played short. Obviously, he could play third. When Harry was hurt, he played center. He could play right. Obviously, he played left last year. Second. I mean, it's just. I think it hurts him in a lot of ways, but I mean, as a manager, it really makes you really super versatile because, you don't have to really go out and get a so-called utility player, the guy that you just kind of explained. I mean, he's going to hit third, he's going to hit right in your lineup. He's a run producer, but if you just watch him and you watch him on a daily basis, it's just really special to watch, and you just. You don't know what organizations and scouts and guys are thinking when they watch this kid play, because not only does he play the game hard, but he plays the game right. I mean, he's, if you put him in left, he never misses a cutoff man, never throws at the wrong base. If you play him at third and there's let's say a bunt coverage or something, he never messes it up. But, I think this year, I'd like to play him at one spot and just kind of let him go and do his own thing. And I think that may maybe have a better chance at him getting picked up, so to speak, because I think, sometimes they think that he's just a utility guy, and a lot of people won't pick up utility players. But if I'm managing the big leagues right now, TJ Middlestat's an everyday player on my team. I don't know where he plays, if it's center, left, third, right, first, because it's funny because he can hit like a corner guy with power. He can run like a middle guy. He can play defense in the outfield like a center fielder. But he would definitely be an everyday guy on my team if I was managing the big leagues right now. No two ways around it.
I think a lot of people don't know, too, is that he's got quite a knuckleball, I understand, too.
Well, he'll tell you he's got a great knuckleball, but that's one thing that he will not do for us this year. He lobbied to get in the game last year, and I'll pass on that. He can just keep hitting and hitting doubles and driving in runs, and we can leave the knuckleball stuff up to all the knuckleballers.
Before we head into fan questions this week, I know you went to visit with Josh last week. Is there anything you'd like to tell us about what went on with those conversations?
We just trying to kind of zone in on everything and just trying to lock up the, our exhibition schedule, what we're going to do in spring training. We signed a deal with Nike for our uniforms this year, which absolutely look fantastic from the renderings. And, we're going to go with New Era hats this year, which is another plus for us. But just trying to get everything just kind of taken care of. So when I get up there, we just kind of go into baseball stuff. And, we kind of talked about the roster a little bit as far as, Zach Cox is still in spring training, and we're going to wait to see what happens with him, where we hope he makes a team. And, then we got some options as far as third base and maybe adding a couple more pitchers. But it was a good trip, just kind of going up there. And, it's good to see Josh. And, I haven't seen him all winter. And, go out and have some lunch and shoot the crap and just, kind of talk baseball for a little while. And, just kind of going through a bunch of little things. But I think team's coming together great. We're going to have a lot of, familiar faces as last year, which I'm totally happy with that because, if you give me the same exact team as last year, I'm good. I mean, I think we're ready to go and we can throw it out there. But, we've, added some pitchers and, it's just a matter of just kind of finalizing everything as far as roster spots and seeing who we're going to bring to camp and, what kind of spring training battles are going to be as far as, for spots. But, it was a good trip, good 3 or 4 days, good to see all the people in Wichita and people in the front office and Josh. And so it's now it's time to come home and, enjoy this last month at home and then gear up and head back up and see what we can do in 2017.
Well, let's head to fan questions this week. We first of all begin with Shirley from Wichita. She says, Pete, I know you did not manage in the American Association when they had that horrible international role, but can you believe they are talking about adding that to Major League Baseball?
Not at all. I think it's a joke. I mean, I really do. If you're worried about pitchers and everything that they worry about, just expand the rosters. If you expand it to 27 or 28, but they can only be pitchers, go ahead and do that. But I think it's I think people got too much time on their hands. It's kind of like the sabermetric stuff, and I was talking to one guy here in Cincinnati, I think last week or before I went to Wichita, talking about his son, his exit velocity off the tee. I don't know what an exit velocity is. All I know is you got to hit the ball first before you have any kind of exit velocity. So I think, these guys in these little rooms that are just making stuff up, I think it's bad for the game. I think the game's been great since Babe Ruth played it and Ty Cobb played it. So I think we just kind of leave it alone and kind of go from there.
Yeah, that exit velocity, they talked about it last year in the playoffs a lot, and I was like, what does this even mean to the game?
I mean, hey, he's gonna hit third because his exit velocity. Well, if he strikes out 200 times, that exit velocity is really not going to do him any good. Are you talking about the exit back to the dugout or exit on getting out of the clubhouse? But it's a sabermetrics, man, and you know how I feel about that. It's just guys that just got too much time on their hands and they just want to think up stuff and it sounds good and. I just don't understand it. I'm a traditionalist and I love to go out and play it and, but I think if you're worried about pitching, just add some pitchers on the roster. Don't make it 25 or, make it 27 or 28. And in that way you got pitchers to cover.
Jim from Oklahoma City says, Pete, wasn't that USA victory in the World Baseball Classic just a classic? Too bad more people didn't get into it.
I'll tell you what, that whole tournament was fantastic. I mean, I tried to watch every game and, to see Stars and Stripes go out and beat Puerto Rico and, the way they did it. And, I mean, a lot of people, I wish a lot more people would have got involved, but I think, they had 55,000 at Dodger Stadium. But I'll tell you what a team. I mean, what a team. And, you got to see some players that, being from Cincinnati, you don't get to see a lot. Christian Yelich, man, what a freak he is. I mean, just what an unbelievable baseball player. I mean, something's crazy when, you got Giancarlo Stanton hitting eighth and, Daniel Murphy's not playing and Alex Bergman's not playing and Buster Posey and LaCroix are going every other day. So, and Goldschmidt's not, playing. So what a great tournament. Tip your hats to the U.S. It's about time we kind of got back in there and showed them, this is our pastime and everything else. But, all the other teams were stacked too. It was just fun to watch. And, I wish they'd do it every other year as opposed to every 4 years or whatever it is. I think it'd be great for baseball.
Chris from Wichita asks, and I hope I say this name right, he says, that sure is cool that former Wingnuts pitcher Junior Guerra is the opening day starter for the Brewers.
Very cool. And you know what? It proves that it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. It doesn't matter if you play independent baseball. It doesn't matter if you're undrafted. If you can get out there and you can work hard and you can put up numbers and you can have somebody that stands behind you and gives you a chance, kind of like we were just talking about with Middlestat. You can say that about Kane. You can say that about Chavez. You can say that about both Shears. You can say that about a bunch of guys. It's great to see, and it's great for our organization. And that's what independent ball is all about. People don't want to realize that. Is it about winning? Yeah, it's about winning, but it's about getting these guys to the next level and giving them an opportunity to keep playing and keep chasing their dream. But, he's a heck of a pitcher. And, I couldn't be more proud to be a Wingnut and proud of our organization, but, proud of him to, he represents our organization, at the highest, and it's great to see.
I think a lot of people forget, too, that Max Scherzer is like the best pitcher in baseball, some would say. It was at Fort Wayne and in the American Association. So
it's crazy. I mean, it's not about tools. I mean, it's about watching the game, and I think that if any scout that wants to scout guys, I think they got to stick with them for, not just go in one day and watch. Yeah, they might have tools, but you know what? They may not have that good of tools, but when they play the game, they may play the game really well. And if you're looking for a baseball team, you know what? Last time I checked, you need baseball players. You don't need tool guys. You need baseball players. But you're right about that. Max Scherzer, that's a guy that, went through the organization, independent ball and look at him. I mean, it's, and it says a lot about our league. It says a lot about the Atlantic League. It says a lot about the Frontier League. It's really good baseball. And like last year we talked about it. There's really good baseball in the American Association. I mean, there's some really, really, really good players that, when I managed with the White Sox, I got to, single A with the White Sox, but, being around double A and triple A guys, a lot of those guys from last year, they can play double and triple A, and a lot of guys can play in the big leagues, in our leagues. It's really good baseball. And I think a lot of people need to come out and watch, not saying so much, our attendance is okay in Wichita. They come out and support us, but some of the towns that just nobody comes, it's kind of sad because there's some really good baseball played and really good baseball players.
Well, besides tools, you got to remember, got to have a great exit velocity. Besides that,
yeah, that's it. I mean, we're going to work on. I don't know if I told you we're going to work on that all spring training. I don't know how we're going to do it. Just maybe pull the fire alarm and just take a dead sprint for the front door. You know what I mean? Exit velocity, and we'll have somebody on the gun that can, see how fast we're running.
Sean from Manhattan asks, with Major League Baseball starting in a week, do you expect to see massive cuts by teams over the next few days? How do you figure out who was the right fit for the team?
That's a good question. I mean, they've already started releasing guys. I mean, Chad Naden got signed. I think it was last week last week. We didn't talk about that because it kind of happened so sudden. But, they brought 110 pitchers into camp, and he was 111. So you figure 111 pitchers for, let's say 5 teams. There's a lot of guys that are going to get released. So, you don't really know who the best fit's going to be. You have a lot of guys that played in Wichita or played for me, that I get a lot of calls and recommend guys and everything else. But, I'm a super loyal guy. And, like I told my guys last year, just for the simple reason on what the year we had is, if you guys are wanting to come back, you guys are in. So, it really wasn't broke, so you don't really need to fix it. Obviously, losing Frankie Reed and Louis Pardo and, some pitchers, Gage Smith, some of those guys, we're going to have to fill some roles. So, I think pitching is probably the most thing we're looking for. And, I think our position players are kind of set, with the guys that we had last year and all wanting to come back and hungry to get back out there on the field. So, you just kind of take a look at stuff. And if you know somebody that they played for, you call them. I'm a big clubhouse guy. I'm a big character guy. And I think that overweighs anything. We've had that talk too. So, you just try to do your homework and just try to find out as much about them as you can and kind of look at their numbers and, see what their track record says. But, if you got 2 guys that are kind of on the same and, one guy's a great character guy and a great clubhouse guy compared to a not so good, you're going to take the great clubhouse guy and character guy. every day and twice on Sunday. At least I am. I mean, I think that speaks volume more than, what they do on the field.
Building off that question, Carl from Wichita would like to know, in your opinion, is there a perfect kind of strategy in building a team?
Yeah, everybody says pitching and defense. Well, I hate pitchers, so I'll say offense and defense because, everybody looks at me like I'm crazy. But you know what? You can't win if you can't score. So, but, it's, Josh does a really good job at kind of building the team. I mean, we both kind of have, says in it, but I think, Josh does it, a lot more than I do, and I kind of just handle the baseball stuff once we get them. You got to have good pitching. You got to have good defense. We had good defense last year. We had great pitching last year, and we had great defense last year. We just came up a game short. So, and I think those guys that pitched, 3, 4, and 5, they were kind of young guys in the championship series. That's going to do nothing but help us. So, I think we're going to be all right. But you always got to have pitching. You always got to have defense, especially, up the middle. We had Medina and Stringer, Leo, and Harry Kane in the middle. So that's a really good, really good defense in the middle. And then you start throwing pitchers in, and I don't know if you can replace a Frankie Reed. I don't know if you can replace a Chad Nading. So those two spots are going to be tough to fill. But I think pitching and defense, I think it definitely wins championships. But with that said, you can't win nothing to nothing. You got to score. So I think an offense, you got to have good offense to make any kind of run at it.
Isaac from Wichita asks of you, he says, why is it such a big deal for pitchers to get the opening day start? I've never understood that. It's I think it's more of a pride thing. I think opening day is more of a spectacle for the fans because, here in Cincinnati, there's a big parade and it's a playoff atmosphere. And, but on the other hand, you always want to win opening day. So you want to go with your best. I think it's kind of like game one of a playoff or game one of a World Series. You want to go out and try to win game one and go from there. So I think that's what the big deal is, and I think being a pitcher, I think it makes you feel good knowing that you're going to pitch in front of 50,000 people opening day. You got the first game out. You're towing the rubber. You got the ball. So I think it's a lot of confidence in not only the organization but the fan base, knowing that you're going to go out there and next thing you know, you got 50,000 people in the stands. So. But you always want to win game one and then kind of go from there. And, I think that's the biggest thing as far as, pitchers wanting to do that. And I think it's, it kind of says, hey, I'm kind of the ace of the staff. And, it's kind of been that way forever, if I can remember right. But, whoever usually pitches opening day, that's usually your ace, and you kind of go from there. Here's an interesting question. I think we're going to learn a little bit about Pete and his dad. So Jerry would like to know, is your dad still as competitive when he plays games with you and your kids today? I mean, would he knock down your kids during his family softball game?
First and foremost, we would not play softball. That would be first and foremost. If we would play softball, we wouldn't live that down. I don't have nothing against softball. My daughter played it. It's fun to watch, but that just wouldn't happen. But, he is competitive. I mean, I'm competitive. I think my son's a little bit more competitive maybe than both of us put together.
Oh, no.
But he wouldn't change. I wouldn't change. I don't think my son PJ would change. He would definitely try to win, but it's a good thing to have. I mean, it's all about winning when you go out there. And I was always taught that winning's better than losing. I mean, the food tastes better. The drinks maybe a little bit more colder after the game as opposed to if you lose, but. He's a softie at heart, especially when he's around his grandkids. So, we'll have to wait and see. But you got to remember, he's going to be 76. So, excuse me, I don't think we're going to be playing any kind of baseball game here soon. But if you get him in the cage and he starts swinging and doing all that other stuff, and if my son will jump in, it'll get competitive, and it's kind of fun to watch. Maybe I'll video it one time or try to sneak a video and. That way everybody can see what goes on. But he's super competitive, and that's where we get it from. And it's it's fun to watch. He's a different bird, but it's really tough to explain because everybody thinks of it as this big tough Charlie Hustle, run you over, eat nails for breakfast, and he's just really a big softie, especially around grandkids and everything else. And Sometimes I wish the whole world would get to see the side that, our family gets to see of him, because it would bring a lot of light onto all the people that hate Pete Rose just because he ran over your catcher or he hit a line drive to beat your team, or, this and that. He's really he's a great guy to be around. He's funny. And he's just a big softie. So, but he's still competitive. He would still try to beat me and my son, I'm sure, at the blink of an eye.
Well, if people hate you because you do your job so well, you must be doing something right.
Exactly.
Still makes me think that family Monopoly night must really be something over at your house.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think we'd have a family Monopoly night. We'd probably be watching sports, whether it be football, basketball, or baseball. And, he'd probably be sitting there trying to, teach my son this and that and everything else. And that's just a teacher in him. So, but it's definitely all around sports. I mean, that's what our family's built on. And we do other things, but, sports kind of comes first.
Graham from Trenton would like to know if you see Matt Harvey rebounding this year.
Oh, definitely. I think he's looked good in spring training. What a good pitcher. I mean, he gives up home runs, but that's kind of really the only thing he does. But, I'm anxious to see that whole staff, with him and DeGrom, Syndergaard and Matz. And then you got the guy, can't forget his name, the ace for Puerto Rico. I mean, he's got to be in there to try to fight for that fifth spot with Wheeler. But I think he's going to be fine. He kind of looked a little different last year in spring training, if you watch a couple of his starts, and he looks totally different this year. And, I like it because he gets after you. I mean, he pitches with emotion, just like Syndergaard does, just like DeGrom does. But I love the Dark Knight. I think it's a perfect nickname for him, and he pitches in Gotham, and I wish him nothing but the best, and I hope he rebounds 200 times better than anybody else, just because I know the kind of stuff he has, and it's electric. I mean, it looks like an uncomfortable at bat when you get in there, because you just know where it's going to go, and he may come up underneath your chin. He may break off that breaking ball, but I definitely think he's going to have a really good year this year.
Blake from Cleveland would like to ask you. He says, do you think Hugh Jackson is in serious trouble with Osweiler as his quarterback?
You know what? I think we talked about this last week. I'm just so glad it's not McCarron. And you know what? If he's in trouble with him, hey, that's great for us, because we still got A.J. McCarron on our roster. Hopefully we can draft Reuben Foster, the linebacker from Alabama, and put him next to Tez for our defense. But, he did something right. I don't know if it was the team or if it was him or it was both, but he did something right in Denver, and Denver sent him to Texas, and now Texas has got him in Cleveland. But I'm sure Hugh would draft somebody, and he's really good with quarterbacks. And like I said before, I'm a huge Hugh Jackson fan. I think that was one of our biggest mistakes by letting him go. But I understand becoming a head coach is probably what coaches, coordinators are all about. But just a great coach, and he's helped our organization, me and the Bengals, like you wouldn't believe. It sucks that he's not with us anymore. I wish he was with us, but I was just glad it wasn't McCarron. So you know what? If he's in trouble, not in trouble, I wish him the best. Just don't take A.J. McCarron from us.
Brenda from Hannibal comments. She says she's not really a Raiders fan, but she hates to see teams move. She says that's the part of the sport that she really hates the most.
Yeah, you know what? It stinks. But you know what? It's a business too. I mean, I understand that part of it, but I just could never see moving away from the dark hole or the black hole. It just kind of speaks the Raiders. I mean, it's just, the Coliseum needs upgrades as far as locker rooms and showers and facilities, and even for the fans and everything. But why not you build a brand new stadium in Oakland and make it look like a black hole? I think that would be outstanding. But I don't like it when teams move, but I understand it because some teams have to. But on the other hand, it's kind of part of the sports and part of business. And if you're a business owner and you own a team and you're not making money and you want to move to try to make more money, I don't really think you can fault them at that. But I think the Raiders definitely need to stay in Oakland. My dad lives in Vegas. I don't know if the Las Vegas Raiders kind of sounds good. It just kind of sounds kind of generic, but I think they need to stay in Oakland. No two ways around it.
Our last question this week, with April Fool's Day coming up, Wingnuts fan says, what do you have planned for Josh this season? I know it'll be great.
You don't have to plan anything for him. He's just so easy. You can just kind of just do whatever. I mean, like I said, I was there for 3 days, and I tried to mess up his desk as much as I could, and he looks at everything, and everything's in the right spot, and I don't know. That's a good question, but to answer it, you really don't have to think about it. You can just kind of just show up, and the situation will kind of present itself, so you can just kind of go from there. And if you tell him he's got the wrong shirt on or something, he'll change like 7 or 8 times. But he's the best, man. I enjoy it, and he gives it back to me a little bit, but I'm not as neat and OCD as he is, which I love, and I just try to mess up his desk. I really do. That brightens my day to where that makes me smile. He'll get up and go take a call or go to the bathroom or something, come back and something's missing or something's out of place, and it's just funny. Maybe I'll put the camera up and try to get him. I'll try to videotape and trying to get it all back together. But what a great guy to work for, and like I said, I had a great 4 days with him, and just can't wait to get back and get the season started, and that way, we see each other on a daily basis. We'll probably go to lunch once a week, and he's a great guy to work for. And he's even a better friend, and that should tell you all you need to know about Josh.
That's the best way to work. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us this week, Pete.
You got it, man. Talk to you next week.
We want to thank manager Pete Rose, Jr. for joining us on Fan Interference this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Wichita Wingnuts manager, please send them to us at askpete@minorleaguesportsreport.com. That's askpete@minorleaguesportsreport.com. Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give Pete a little time to review them before we record the show. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report. We'll see you next time on Fan Interference.